Hello and welcome to the Genesis Invitational Golf One and Done video brought to you by Pool Genius. My name is Stephen Andress, joined each and every week on this show by the lead analyst over at Pool Genius, Jason Lisk. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason Lisk. In this week's episode, it's another signature event, $4 million to the winner. We're going to go through the biggest favorites. We're going to go through the three most popular as projected by Pool Genius for Golf One and Done pools. We'll look at recent course history here. We'll look at recent form. At the end of the video, Jason and I will give our top three for the Genesis Invitational. We'll also give our conviction play and our favorite long shot for this week, although it's not a great week to go long shot hunting. We'll get into that. If at any point you find the information in this video helpful, do us a small favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments who you are picking for this week at Riviera Country Club. Jason, hello to you, sir. You know, last week we got a top 20 out of Russell Henley, and I only lost a couple of spots in my standings. Yeah. I think the ownership was, from what I saw, less than 1% on a lot of the players in the top five. So if you had one of those, hats off to you. But for for the majority and the rest of us, wasn't that hard of a week? Wasn't that penal of a week?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Henley wasn't the best pick. He also wasn't the worst. So you got some money out of him. Same with, I think my highest cash of the guys I used heavily was Fitzpatrick, but he wasn't significantly higher. But yeah, Colin Morikawa. We talk Colin Morikawa won this event completely against form, not only in the last few weeks, but pretty much for the last 8-9 months. And I'll take responsibility because in the Discord this week, I posted last Tuesday, we had a grade on Morikawa. You know, for those who use our product, we assign grades out. We'll generally grade probably 15-ish, 20, depending on the week, that will have an assigned grade as being an option that we think is worth, looking at based on their odds and the tournament value, etc. He came in and I posted, not today, Satan. Because every time I use Morikawa, it's a massive disappointment. And of course, the 1 week where I do that. So I'm going to take some responsibility here. And I may just have to put a Morikawa pick on every week that I can, just so none of you have to. So we put the kibosh on them.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is always 20/20. And I always like to look back at my modeling and see, is there any reason I could have looked at Morikawa, maybe put him on the card? I actually did, in hindsight, see that despite the fact that, over the past 2 years, anytime he's been in contention on a Sunday, he's blown it. On paper, the wedge play was still very strong, just couldn't putt. And we were at a short course where wedge play is in play. He's a Northern California guy. He went to Cal. He won the PGA Championship in the Bay Area as well. So in hindsight, it wasn't that shocking to me. What was shocking?
And he's won an open, which we talked about. I mean, so there are things in his past. It's just the recent form.
And when he did get in contention, he never closed. I mean, he had a 5-stroke lead at the Century and couldn't close that in Hawaii. So, hindsight's 20/20, but it is interesting now. You know me, Jason, in my golf handicapping, elite iron play, approach play is the core to handicapping golf tournaments, and then we sprinkle in the other things that matter for each course. But every week, strokes gained approach is important to me to some varying degree. That means Morikawa's back, and that means we now have to consider him at these courses where approach play is important, and this is one of them. Not saying he's going to win back-to-back events, but we'll get into that a little bit here. But let's start the show, Jason, with the three most popular players as projected by Pool Genius for the Genesis Invitational. This is the tournament hosted by Tiger Woods. That means it will not be a birdie fest because that's not how Tiger likes it. It is at Riviera Country Club, and the first player projected around that, no more than 12% from what you guys are seeing, Jason, is Tommy Fleetwood, who played his first PGA Tour event last week after playing overseas in the fall swing in January as well. And he showed up and he played great. He played great at Pebble Beach. So that's coming off the FedEx Cup Championship last year where he finally won a PGA Tour event, albeit in a field of 29, 30 players. So when I model him, though, for this week, strong. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of distance off the tee, but that might not hurt him here. The rough is going to be a little bit longer. We're talking about Kikuyu rough here at Riviera, which is tougher to get through. So finding fairways should be rewarded here. Again, Tiger Woods is the host. He wants major-like conditions at this tournament. Tommy Fleetwood makes a lot of sense. The ball striking is on point, and he gained across the board last week at Pebble Beach to finish T4 at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, Fleetwood's he's got to be on the short list. This is probably not a top 3 money event, but it is tied for 4th. And because there's only 3 ahead of you and it's only a $500,000 difference, I mean, you could make an argument that, you want to play a good golfer here. If you get a lead, then you play out the rest of the season differently and you're in good shape. So, I mean, there's an argument for firing away at this one. This is more so than Pebble. I think the chalk and the quality shows up here more consistently. And so this is probably an event where he makes sense as one of the few guys that I think is a good head-to-head, like a reasonable head-to-head play against Scotty, if you're not going to use him.
Yeah, for sure. The second guy in our top 3 most popular this week for the Genesis is Rory McIlroy. Makes a lot of sense. Big purse on the line here. It's not Scotty, so you might want to save Scotty. So that might make people gravitate to Rory. He did not finish as highly as Tommy Fleetwood at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, but he struck the ball extremely well. I mean, he gained almost 8 on approach across the 4 rounds, 2 per round. If you're watching that event last week, again, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but I think that was his first event of the year after coming back from overseas.
Yeah, him and Lowry, I think several of the Euros who had played over in the Middle East.
Just like he did last year, popped back over, won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am last year. This year finished top 20, but the ball striking was 100% there in an elite form. If you watch that tournament, what you saw was a couple of holes here and there where the short game let him down. Missed some chips, took a couple to get on the green from out of the sand, 3 putts for double bogeys on par 3s. So the short game was just sloppy for Rory last week. But when I start modeling him for this course, Jason, and I start filtering for tough scoring conditions, again, I'm of the belief that Tiger Woods wants to make his tournament close to major championship conditions. If you look at the final scores of the past champions here, we're not talking 20 under par. We're talking, 10 to 15 or so. So, this is a situation for me with Rory where his distance is a big weapon here. It is a longer course. It's just under 7,400 yards. And Rory McIlroy, when you look at all of the golfers in this field and what they've done over the past 3 years in majors, Rory shoots to the top of the list. He's right in that top 3 with Scotty Scheffler. Obviously, we all know Rory plays well in majors. So the difficult scoring conditions should help Rory. I just get a little nervous about him finding fairways with this type of rough being difficult to get out of. But the longer you hit it off the tee, the easier it is to still hit the green because you have a shorter iron in your hand. So it might be mitigated by that. But obviously, with a $4 million first place prize here, Rory still has to be on our short list for sure.
Yeah, he has to be on the short list. And if you think about like where might he tend to draw? I mean, he's got to be, I think, reasonably popular here, but he won the Masters. He won the Players.
Yep.
He's always done well at Wells Fargo. So those might be even more popular events for him just coming off those results. So I don't think this is a terrible spot to use him instead of at those spots where maybe more people will lean on. For a lot of the reasons we briefly touched on. I mean, it's a top 6 event, but arguably. So when we think about like there being 15 signature events and don't use golfers at these lower events, it becomes a lot smaller when you're betting against a guy only doing well at 3 other events, right? Like, can I hit the win here and fade him at the Masters, right? Then it becomes a more palatable proposition to maybe take the slightly lower first place prize because you only have to hit 1 or 2 outcomes and not 10, like you would if you picked Scotty at for a 1.7 million prize. So I do think it's in play for all these guys for that reason. And here's the other thing. We've seen the Masters. There's a decent correlation between guys that do well at the Masters and guys that do well at Riviera, that have success within a short period of time. Guys that have won both in the same year or within a few years. And Rory just won the Masters. So I think like the game tends to match up the same at the two courses.
It does for sure. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that correlation with the Masters when we get to our course preview here. I will just note that for me personally, looking for where I want to play Rory this year, I will not be using him at the Masters, hoping that he will be popular there as the defending champion. A couple of reasons why. It took him so long to win his first Masters that I think this one's going to be a celebration for him. There's so much that comes with being the defending champion of the Masters. He gets to host the big dinner. He gets to pick the menu. He's going to be doing every media opportunity. He's probably going to play in the par 3 contest and enjoy that with his family and his friends. So there's a reason why the last person to win back-to-back Masters was Tiger Woods. And before that, you have to go back to Jack Nicklaus and Nick Faldo. So it's hard to win back-to-back because of all the things that come with walking on to Augusta National as the defending champion. And that will be even more heightened because it's Rory McIlroy this time. So just keep that in mind. Bit of narrative street, but it is a very real thing when it comes to his time commitments. You don't tell Augusta National no to anything. Just put it that way when it comes to the things and the requests that they have for you when you walk onto the grounds that week as the defending champion. The third guy that we have ranked as most popular in our projections for the Genesis Invitational, Jason and his team have pinpointed Hideki Matsuyama, which makes a lot of sense to me. Again, all three of these guys, Tommy Fleetwood, Rory McIlroy, Hideki Matsuyama, being projected by Pool Genius to no more than 12%. This is an interesting one. The last time we were at Riv, he won. Also, he was driving the ball a little bit longer and a little bit straighter a couple of years ago. Last few weeks, we've talked about it at length. If he could hit the ball straight off the tee, he would have already won at the Phoenix Open. The rough is long here, so that will hurt his chances if he's not finding enough fairways, in my opinion. But when I model him, Jason, he's right there in the top 3 with Scotty, every which way I tried to put it. Tough scoring conditions, last 12 major championships, remove short courses, remove easy scoring conditions. He's there because all the other aspects of his game right now could overcome the deficiencies off the tee. The ball striking is phenomenal. This is a longer course. He's outstanding with long irons and woods in his hands. And these green complexes are very difficult. They will be fast on the greens. They are undulating. If you are in the rough off the greens, they are tricky up and downs. And he is the best, not only in this field, but in my opinion, the entire world when it comes to chipping and putting and saving par and strokes gained around the green. So there's a reason why he's won here before. There's a reason he has great course history. He has the past Masters champion correlation here to also put him on the short list. I just need to decide if I can get over his deficiencies with accuracy off the tee to maybe use him in one and done this week, Jason.
Yeah, I think he's we'll talk about him here coming up, but he definitely has the course history. The last time we saw him was that blistering round to basically, what did he shoot, 9 under?
And just Sunday 62, yeah.
Roaring to the lead. Just one of the best rounds we've seen over the last couple of years. My guess is if we look at the data. So he's capable, like you said, the off the tee hasn't been as good early, and he's still scoring well. He's still scrambling enough. He's more in that, though. Is he going to be popular enough where I don't want to be completely on him? I've got to think about it. I probably want I have over 10 entries, so I probably have one Hideki just to kind of draft partially with the crowd, just in case. I don't want to be overweight Hideki this week. I don't think. I think I'd want to because to me he's maybe below Rory and Fleetwood and in because of the off the tee issues, where I might be a little more willing to fade him in the percentage I use him.
Yeah. And let's get into why. We'll all right. Before we do that, there is one more thing with the popularity that we need to caveat here. When we came on and did this show last week, we gave you the 3 most popular projections. And then Jason and I had a lot of conviction to make Russell Henley our main guy for one and done last week. And I'm not trying to overinflate like the effect of this show, because there were other golf content creators out there that loved Russell Henley as well. He was a very popular pick in the golf content space. But Russell Henley shot up from on a Tuesday outside the Pool Genius top 3 projections for most popular to in the biggest golf one and done pool in the country being 18% and clearly the most popular. So I think it's important, Jason, for us to at least note that and to talk about the possibility that even though we have these projections on a Tuesday, all these people that are in golf one and done pools are consuming all of this content, and that can change before the tournament starts on a Thursday.
Yeah, I had, and I think by Wednesday of last week, if you were, a subscriber looking in our data grid, I did increase that. Now, did I think 18%? I did not. He did bump into my top 3 because of not only our recommendations, because I do think they have a factor. Like you said, there were others. I know Pat Mayo talked about them. There's plenty that talked about Henley. And so I'm also paying attention to that as the week goes on. I'm checking some other things and even other contests that aren't OAD, just like popularity in general. And so I had a sense he was going to trend upward, but I would have guessed like 10, right? I had him at like 7 to 8 initially. And I would have guessed that bumped him 2 or 3 and instead it doubled. So I think the lesson here, and I've tried to make projections and we try to hit a moving target, right? I'm not relying on data like who people have picked on Monday morning. I'm projecting how people have behaved last week, the week before, last year, to try to give estimates on what I think people will value. It's similar to the circuit contest for those who are familiar with the Circuit Survivor. We're providing, I think, smart advice, but we know there's like a feedback loop.
Yeah.
And so if we say a team's a good choice, then whether they're listening to us or they're people who are also smart, using similar process and arriving at that independently, if we think it's a good play, it's probably a play people will gravitate toward more than we thought initially. And so we do want to think about that. Like, you're trying to beat everybody listening to this video. So you do want to be an independent thinker too. And you want to evaluate, like, where is the cutoff for me? A lot of times I'll say, I don't care about the popularity unless it gets 18% is getting up there. At 10%, I'm willing to play a guy, like, especially in an event like this. I don't care if Fleetwood comes in at 14 instead of 10, it's probably fine. We'll talk about scenarios where that's not the case. But yeah, I do think critically, we do probably have some influence, and also people that think like us may not even be watching the show, but arriving at the same conclusions.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. Okay, let's move on to our tournament preview here. Just to give you an overview for golf one and done purposes, the Genesis Invitational, again, Tigers tournament. This is a signature event. $20 million purse, $4 million to the winner. For context, only 3 tournaments this year are projected to give more money to the winner: the Players Championship, the U.S. Open, and the Masters. That could change with the other majors. Maybe they increase their purse, but at least as of right now, based on what they were last year, this would be the 4th biggest prize of any tournament on the schedule this year, tied with all the other signature events that also give $4 million to first. It is at Riviera Country Club. We are back after a 1-year hiatus because of the LA wildfires. Almost 7,400 yards and only 3 par 5s on this course. It is a par 71. We are in LA. We are in California. No surprise, we are still on POA greens, but they will be fast. These are not the same POA greens as it is at Pebble Beach when it's coastal and they have to guard against the ball just not being able to stand still with high winds. These are POA greens that will be fast and slick with tricky greens complexes. The defending champion is Ludwig Oberg with a big asterisk next to that. That's because this tournament was played at Torrey Pines last year. I do not care that Ludwig Oberg is the defending Genesis Invitational champion because it was not played at this course last year. the past winners before him when it was at Riv: Hideki Matsuyama, John Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, Max Homa, Adam Scott won it for a second time, JB Holmes, Bubba Watson won it 3 times, Dustin Johnson the year before that. If those names seem to have something in common, a lot of them have a green jacket. 8 instances of those past champions have a green jacket. So there is a strong correlation to playing well at Augusta National and playing well at the Masters to also playing well here at Riviera Country Club. So keep that in mind. Lastly, the weather forecast. Thursday is the day to keep an eye on. Possible pop-up rain. We'll see. Possible heavier wind in the PM. I don't know if that will translate to a pure wave advantage because this is a smaller field in a signature event. So there's not as many tee times. It's just like a straight run down from start to finish. So keep an eye on the tee times. There might be an AM advantage on Thursday, but I don't know how that's going to stack with the way the signature event is, and half as many people in the field as there would be for a typical PGA Tour event. But keep that wind in mind for Thursday. The rest of the week looks fine. Friday through Sunday, sunny, low winds, a little chilly spring-like temperatures in the 50s and 60s, but Friday through Sunday looks perfectly fine and no concerns with the wind or precipitation. Okay, Jason, let's get into the data grid here. And as we always do, we will start with the top 3 favorites. And as he always is, when he's in the field at this point, Scottie Scheffler is the favorite. And we need to at least have a conversation about Scottie Scheffler. As you can see, everybody, there is a pick grade next to him. He is lower popularity than the 3 most projected or highest projected popularity that we discussed. And with only 3 other events having a bigger purse than this, and with Scottie still somehow finishing top 5 every week despite one bad round, obviously he's in play here, and he also has 2 green jackets. So The question becomes, Jason, is this the spot where we maybe use him, or are we convinced that there's a better spot with the same amount for first place, or maybe one of those 3 others that pays a little more than $4 million?
I think this is a perfectly reasonable spot to use him if you want to do so. Fire away. I will present the arguments for and against, right? Because it's early. And we know Scottie's kind of Scottie is the queen on the chessboard, even way more than anybody else out there, right? You get to use him once. You really need to hit a win with him or a second place. Like the people that got a T4, not a solo 4, a T4 at Pebble got under $1 million, which is great for most golfers. Like if you used a golfer and you happen to get 800,000 out of him, you'd be like, okay, that's fine. For Scottie, that's probably a net negative in most cases. You're going to be trailing over half the field when we look back at the end of your standings if you get under $1 million when the week you use Scottie. Which is to say, no matter when you use him, it's high leverage. You need him to do well that week. You pushed in on that entry. The good and bad is it's early. So you are going to probably get, he's hard for me to project like popularity. I don't think he's ever going to get super steamed up because there's going to be so many differences of opinion. But I think this is going to be one of the 6 where he's going to get like 5 to 10, somewhere in that range, and then get it spread across the other events, like the playoff events, maybe the Heritage, events like that, the PGA, other things. And so I think he's never going to get super steamed no matter when you use him. I think he's going to be at reasonable ownership here. It's early, which is both good and bad. You get a win with Scottie early and you get $4 million, you are in great shape, right? You can combat and just hope he doesn't then roll and win every other big event too. The game theory, what reason to save him is kind of like you've got the Memorial for the similar amount in May or early June. I think it ends in early June. You got the U.S. Open, which he also hasn't won, but profiles as the guy that can win, and where I think he'll actually be even less popular because by then people will have used him and people will have the live golfers available to him. and there'll just be more options. And so if he's going to be 6%, 7% here, he could be 3 at the US Open. And that's a case where with those two events, like within a 3-week span, you can choose, do I go with him at the Memorial where he has won multiple times and is probably going to be popular? If I'm in great shape in that pool and I've hit other winners, maybe I do that. And if I need him at the US Open, I do that. So the longer you hold Scotty, I think there's more game theory ways you can play it. But I think this is a perfectly reasonable and relatively low-owned spot to use them.
I agree with that. I'll also just share why I'm not using him this week.
Yeah.
Scotty, for all his dominance, is also a guy who tends to pile up wins at places he's won before. He's won the Masters multiple times. He's won the Players multiple times. He's never finished top 5 at Riviera. I know it's a small sample size, but for what it's worth, going back to when we were last here, he finished T10, T12, T7 before that. I don't want to go further than that because he hadn't really broken out yet, but I mean, he's still been awesome the last few years. And he hasn't had a top 5 here. So that at least makes me wonder, okay, do I really want to burn him here?
Right.
And if we look at the other purses, he's probably going to be really popular at the Players because that's the biggest first place prize in golf one and done. Maybe he won't be as popular at the Masters because people have used him at the Players, because maybe people have used him here, and because Rory is the defending champion. The Masters is where I might use him, if not for another signature event like Memorial, another place where he's won multiple times. So that's kind of why I'm leaning not to use him this week. And I have 3 guys in my top 3 who I feel pretty good about to go to bat against Scotty here. Surely at some point he's going to put 4 rounds together and beat everybody by 5. It might be this week, but even if it is this week, I still have a chance to cash a first place where the people that use him this week won't make as much as me if I nail it correctly at one of these other events that either make the same or more. So we'll see.
Well, this is why I like to play several entries and double-digit entries, is because I can make these choices and be like, okay, I will use Scotty here because it's one of the 6 or 7 events. I'm going to spread my entries. Now, will I save more for the Memorial / US Open and the Masters, and then maybe the Players? Yes, but I do think I'm going to have it in play. This is my argument for you all to play if you are able to. Kind of a diversified approach is you can cover some of these things and benefit in some ways whichever ones he wins, because I'm going to make it so hopefully I hit Scotty on some of them, and then it's a matter of if I hit the right winners besides Scotty outside of that. And so I'm kind of spacing it out. So I will have 1 Scotty in play out of roughly 12, I think, that I have this week. So about 8%. So I'll probably match the public. And that way, if he wins, I have an entry that shoots up into near the top of the standings.
For sure. And with course history being fairly sticky here, and high correlation with the Masters, I mean, you got Rory here, who has 2 top 5s at this event. You have Hideki, who's won it. You have Xander, who has a top 5 at Riviera as well. And Tommy obviously playing the best golf of his life. So I think there are some good options here with the rough being up. There are some guys here I think we can pinpoint that should find some fairways and still have some good distance that we can go after here. So let's go to course history as well now, Jason, to look at that. These guys did not make my betting outright card yet, but it is very interesting. Now, Max Homa didn't play last week. He has won here in the past. He's a California guy. He loves this course. Just like Patrick Cantlay loves this course, he is on record saying it is by far his favorite event, his favorite course he goes to every year. He has not won this event yet, but he has done everything but win it, essentially. He's got a T4. Last time we were here in 2024. In 2023, he finished 3rd. He's got top 20s from 2018 through 2021. So he loves this place. He had full control of this tournament through 3 rounds a couple of years back. I think he's the one that Hideki ran down with that Sunday 62. He's had first round leader here a couple of times, so that's something to think about if you're looking at some other betting markets. It is certainly on the short list of places where I might want to use Patrick Cantlay. I just don't know if he's fully back in form or not. The ball striking looked pretty good again last week, but he is 100% on my short list this week for outright. It's just his odds weren't great. I was hoping to have a 3 instead of a 2 on his odds, something in the 30s. But if you're talking about Riv, then I think Patrick Cantlay at least has to be in your top 5.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And you look at his course history, and I'm going to show you right now. I'm sorted by course history, and what we see is, other than Homa, these guys are fairly short odds guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I sort by odds, you got to get down to Russell Henley and Siwoo before there's guys that have really not played what I would consider above their average or their norm here. So most of these guys are doing at least as good as kind of where we have them rated overall. So this is a top golfer's course for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the bottom of our odds board, you see a lot of bad histories. So this one is almost like a major in how it separates out the quality of golfer. And the guys who show up in our course history are mostly guys that you're going to have numbers in the plus 4,000 or shorter range. So I think that's just a lesson in like, how far do you want to go down the odds board this week?
Yeah, and I think with Cantlay, the other thing to keep in mind, if you want a safe play, because there is a cut, even though this is a signature event, there is a cut because it's Tiger's tournament and you can do whatever he wants. So it's top 50 in ties, I think, and then you can still also make the cut if you're within 10 strokes. So guys will be cut this week. There is a danger of getting a 0 in your golf one and done pool. So if you want a safe pick, Patrick Cantlay is pretty darn safe with his course history here. He hasn't missed the cut at this course since 2013. He went, that was like crazy early in his career when he's been like a true professional golfer, one of the 25 best players on tour. He's played it every year since 2018. He hasn't finished worse than T33. Mentioned all those top 20s, 3 top 5s in that span. So if you want a safe guy, Patrick Cantlay's the safe guy. I just don't know if he's got the ceiling. If he's going to finally break his winless drought, you would think Riv is one of the places where he would do it, but he hasn't won since the BMW in 2022. I mean, I know Morikawa broke a 2-year streak last week, but you know, do you want to take a guy with $4 million on the line who has not won a tournament since 2022? That's the other thing.
I'll present the argument that I wouldn't be opposed to it. Because let's give you a scenario where he does well and he finishes 3rd, 4th, right? And Scotty wins. Well, getting a 3rd or 4th out of somebody who's not Scotty in an event Scotty wins is actually a pretty good like combo of results, because you still have Scotty come back against that group and you got a pretty good result. Because basically, as we saw last year, Scotty won like 5 of these, right? He won like a couple majors, a couple events like this. So a lot of the winning entries had like some of the key 2nd and 3rd place finishers in those events Scotty won, because they hit the points that maybe others weren't getting from other golfers. And so it can still work out for you with a pick like Cantlay with a top finish at an event like this, even if he doesn't win, depending on who wins. Because if Scotty wins, or we get a surprise where a 0.5% golfer wins, you're probably in good shape.
I want to briefly touch on the 2 other guys here in the top 4 who you have grades next to, Cameron Young and Victor Hovland. I'm out on Victor Hovland. I think he's trying to find something here off the tee. Something's wrong with him off the tee. There was a viral shot of him wearing what looked like swim floaties on the range, trying to tuck his elbows and figure out how to get his off the tee game back. So that's been an issue for several weeks now. He's also not a great chipper. It's been better, but this is a really tough place to chip, and he's never really chipped well here. And that's required with how tough some of these holes are. Cameron Young has not gained on approach in back-to-back events, Phoenix and Pebble. That takes me off of him. Like, I know he's got a driver that's very strong and pretty accurate as well, but you have to have good iron play here. You have to have elite iron play here to contend. at Riv. And I know he's got good course history and he's done well at the Masters, even though he hasn't won a green jacket yet. But uh, I don't know if you can flip a switch with this below average iron play that he's had in back-to-back weeks here, Jason, and just all of a sudden show up and be top 5 at Riv.
Well, I was going to have him in my top 3, and I probably still will, because I do think.
Okay, heads up, baby. Let's go. We'll battle on this one.
Yeah, I mean, because maybe Morikawa just has me, like, in a mood, because sometimes you got to go against some recent form in some ways to get the low ownership and leverage. And I do think he's of the quality that can be like that. Now, last week I said Xander, and I didn't say Morikawa. So Xander didn't fit, Morikawa won it. But sometimes you got to just go against. And I think he has some of the underlying skills that can win here. And so if he can turn that around, I think he's on the short list of guys that I'm willing to take who are going to be lower owned relative to the 10% guys.
Okay.
He's on my short list of guys that I think could surprise.
All right. Well, let's get into it, man. Let's, before we get into our top 3, let's just look at recent form real quick. Won't be surprising to people to see Scotty Scheffler there, Tommy Fleetwood as well. Yep, he's also played well overseas.
Jake Knapp. I mean, Jake Knapp has been.
Yeah, I want your opinion, and then I'll give you mine, because I've seen some people touting him in recent weeks. What do you think about his fit for here?
I mean, he can hit it off the tee. So I think that keeps him in play. I do worry that he's not played here in an event where quality tends to show up and have some experience here. And so I do worry a little bit about that as to whether this is the week I want to use him. But he's definitely moved up into that range where he's in play for these events, because we know his upside is he can put it together in a given week. And now we've seen more consistency than we've ever seen in his career over like a month extended stretch where he's just been one of the best golfers. So Knapp could certainly be a flyer that you could throw on there under the same philosophy that I just talked about with Cam Young. At his best, can he get it done? Yes, he can. So you might. He's toward the bottom end of where I would consider picking guys in this event, though.
So the distance is definitely there. He's an elite distance guy off the tee. I want to use him in a spot where missing the fairway is not going to punish him that much. Right. There's a lot of those kind of B-level events that he emerged and was in contention, and I think he won one of those. Now, I will say, over the past 24 rounds, he's not only 4th in driving distance, but I'm seeing pretty accurate here as well in terms of fairways gained, good drives gained. So it at least makes it interesting, but I'm not using him in one and done. I need to see him do it in major championship-like conditions first before we get into it. I don't consider Pebble Beach last week to be major championship conditions. So certainly keeping an eye on Jake Knapp, though.
So would you consider him, if the form reasonably continues for the next month, at the Players as an event, as a really kind of low-owned guy? I think he did well at the Players last year. At really long odds. Nobody had him on the board, and I think he had I can't remember, it was 10 inside the top 10. But would you consider Knapp's game for the Players Championship at Sawgrass, or do you think there's too much trouble?
So he finished T12 last year. He still lost strokes off the tee in that Players. It makes me wonder if he still sprayed it a little too much, found some water a couple times at the Players. You need to be uber accurate at the Players with all the water in play off the tee. I think it's like 14, 15 holes where water's in play. So if I see accuracy off the tee to continue here, I'm seeing elite distance and basically field average accuracy. If I see that go up a little bit, well, we can have that conversation. We're not there yet. It has improved. Last year it was a lot of below average accuracy. It has improved, but it's still not consistently above average accuracy off the tee yet for Jake Knapp. If he does that, oh yeah, he could be a weapon. He could be like Goddard right? Where some of these events where he can put the ball where he wants off the tee. So anytime you're that elite with your distance off the tee, if you just find a little bit of accuracy at a place where you're not going to get penalized with penalty strokes for being too wayward, it becomes a very interesting conversation, but not yet for me here. And we'll see about the players, but I'll keep it in mind for sure if we still see the accuracy. Okay, let's get into our top 3 here, Jason. Let's start with you because you mentioned Cameron Young is in your top 3, and then take it away from there.
So I've got a couple guys. I'm going to give top 3, and we do a long shot. I don't know that I have a long shot here if we're going to define it as like plus.
Yeah, I was going to caveat mine too.
So I'm going to go a little shorter, and I'll say the guy that I almost included. I mean, I'm going to be boring. I'm going to have Fleetwood number 1. Definitely going to use multiple Fleetwoods. I'm going to have Rory 2, and I'm going to have Cam Young as that alternative, who is at lower ownership, but I think can put a week together where he does well in an event like this. He's got a second from several years ago, 4 years ago. Like you said, he's had some good rounds at the Masters, top 10s. I think he has the game that can win here. The short-term form has not been as good, so I'm going to play against that just a bit with that pick. The guy who's even lower odds, but I would consider, is a guy who was leading last week, Akshay.
Okay, yeah.
Down here at plus 5,000. So, he's not that much further than the 3,300, 4,000 guys. And the reason is kind of like, we saw him put it together and then kind of lose it put up a pretty mediocre last day with the lead.
Yeah.
But he's one of those high fluctuations. So if I'm going to take a flyer on a guy, I want a guy with that kind of profile. And he also has some of these. He's only played, I think, Augusta twice as a very young player and hasn't really stood out yet, but he's made the cut both times at a very young age. He's a lefty. We've seen lefties do well here and at Augusta. I think there are elements of the course that play to lefties that have his shot profile. We saw Mike Weir. I mean, Mike Weir, 3 of his biggest wins in his career were twice here and at the Masters. And could he be like a similar player to Mike Weir, and could he surprise? So he's kind of one that he would be, as far as I go down long shot, and he was kind of like 4th on my list. That I will probably have a Batia pick on a one and done entry, and that's probably as low as I go.
Bubba Watson also won here 3 times, another lefty. So something else to consider for sure. Batia is on my short list. Basically, I have not finished my betting card for this week. The only guys I have bet as of Tuesday morning are Hideki Matsuyama at 25-1, and also the guy I'll reveal here in a second, who's the last guy I'll mention in my top 3, a 40-1 shot. I'm deciding whether I want to bet Rory. And if I bet Rory, that's it. My card's done at his odds. I'm hoping to get like a 15 maybe. I don't know if I'm going to get it. So I need to decide whether to just go with Rory, maybe go up to 4 units to win 30 units, or if I want to stick to around 3.5 to 3.75 units, I might forego Rory and include guys like Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, Akshay Bhatia, certainly on my short list here. He's playing extremely well. So I have a decision to make. I'll include it in the comments with who I wind up going with. But for my top 3, I will start with Rory McIlroy. He struck the ball beautifully last week. I think the issues he had in scoring are easily fixable. He had a couple of uncharacteristic bad chips. He did not putt well on those slow greens last week. I think that's a pretty easy fix for him. The ball striking is there. He gained, almost 8 strokes on approach to go with a really amazing skill off the tee with his elite distance. That becomes a very interesting proposition with Rory McIlroy for this week. And obviously you see here on the data grid, he's got a pretty high pick grade. The second guy is Hideki Matsuyama. I thought I was going to come onto the show and say, this is my conviction pick. I love Hideki this week. He's got enough around the green and with the putting right now. And if we're going to try and beat Scotty Scheffler, if he has his A game, then we need somebody who can go scorched earth as well and go shot for shot with Scotty Scheffler. We've already seen Hideki Matsuyama do that. The popularity is starting to scare me off a little bit. If he's going to be top 3 popular, I might not go with him this week. So I'm weighing that And I'm also weighing Hideki is fragile. Like, he could break at any point, and you might not want to use him anywhere for the rest of the year. So, excuse me, I'm coming down to its decision with Hideki. The third guy, I think, is a very interesting guy. You haven't mentioned him yet, Jason, and I want to get your reaction to him.
Okay. I'm ready.
The Englishman, Matthew Fitzpatrick. This guy is one of the rare players in the field who has elite, I won't call it elite, I'll call it above average accuracy off the tee and above average distance. We've seen guys who can do that, who can hit their driver straight, have a lot of success here. Joaquin Niemann is the one who stands out to me. He has a T5 here back in 2021. Recent form in terms of ball striking looks phenomenal. After playing extremely well in Europe before the start of the PGA Tour season, including a win at the DP World Tour Championship, where he had above average distance and above average accuracy off the tee in that event, and outdueled Rory McIlroy in that event. He comes back to the PGA Tour, and now he's had back-to-back weeks with well above average off the tee numbers and well above average approach numbers as well. He gained 9 strokes off the tee last week at Pebble Beach. He typically has above average around the green play, even though he's had a couple of events in the past 3 weeks where it's been a little below. I think that's a blip on the radar. He's typically very good around the green. And he's typically been a very good putter as well. And if the ball striking is really good, like the truth about this event, nobody putts well here. So if you're one of the elite ball strikers, you could win without even putting all that well. And we've seen that now. Like, this goes back to my fundamentals of betting on golf and handicapping golf. You need to be rooted in ball striking. Last 2 weeks are perfect examples of that. Chris Gotterup won Phoenix and Colin Morikawa won Pebble Beach. Neither of them were above average in the field in putting. Because they had such elite ball striking, they were able to overcome some below average putting and still win an event. Matthew Fitzpatrick fits perfectly into that this week at a really good price at 40-1. The added accuracy off the tee makes it interesting for me as well. He is on my betting card. He's absolutely on my list of 2 or 3 guys for my conviction pick as well, Jason.
Yeah, I'm looking at for whatever reason, he has not played well here the last few times he's been here.
So let me talk about that. Talk about that.
But I do like the pick. I mean, I had him last week. I'll let you talk about it. I'll just quickly add my 2 cents.
Here's why I don't care that he hadn't played well here the last couple of times. Last couple of years, he lost his game. I mean, he was lost. He won the U.S. Open in 2022, but last year and the year before, he was completely lost for whatever reason. Wasn't playing well at all. Last year started to find his game, really peaked towards the end of the regular season and into the FedEx Cup playoffs. I mean, we're talking about T4 at the Scottish Open, T4 at the Open Championship, top 10 at the Wyndham, goes overseas, 2 top 5s, and then wins the DP World Tour Championship. Comes back this year to start the year, a top 10 and a top 20 at the Phoenix and the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, respectively. And that ball striking has carried over from what he found at the second half of last year. So I kind of drew a line through his form from basically 2024 and the first half of 2025, because I think he's just found it again. And he started to rise up in my modeling. The more short-term you go, the better he looks, because you're starting to get more of that kind of like lost era out of his sample. And we know this is a major championship caliber test this week, and he has won a major when he's in good form, and I think he's in great form right now.
Listen, he's 9th in our golfer ratings. He's up there, as you said. I highlighted him as one of my top 3 last week. Not going to use him again this week for that reason, but I do think he's certainly on the short list. I like the pick. Definitely one that I don't think there's any way he gets steamed up significantly. And so you're probably getting sub 5% ownership when you pick 5th round.
That's interesting. All right, my long shot for this week. There was one guy who got steamed like crazy in long shot perspective, at least. He opened at 200 to 1 at a couple of spots, Jason, and has been bet all the way down to 110, 120 to 1. He's got great course history. He's actually striking his irons pretty well. Little flimsy off the tee. Putting's been good. Tony Finau for the Genesis Invitational is my favorite long shot. I've kind of bet him in terms of a ladder. I got 4 to 1 on him to top 20. I got a little bit on him close to 12 to 1 to top 10. Got a little bit on him at 30 to 1 to top 5. And then I found this number's gone, but at the time on Monday, 175 to 1 for him in the winner without Scotty market. Again, course history is sticky here. Tony Finau once lost in a playoff at the Genesis at Riv. He's had another second place finish at this event as well. The form is trending. And if you look at difficult scoring conditions, go back and look at like the best finishes Tony Finau has ever had in his career. A lot of it are at events where the winning score is 15 under par or worse. And in my modeling for the stats that I cared about most for this tournament, if I filtered only major championships over the past 50 rounds, he wound up third behind Scotty and Rory. He likes it tough. He likes it long and tough. He likes this course. We know that. I thought his number was way off. It's corrected a little bit now. I wouldn't necessarily use him in one and dones because of the nature of this tournament and favorites doing well, a major championship pedigree, but I think there's at least a little money to be made on Tony Finau in some form or fashion. Maybe you're playing like pools where you're picking guys in tiers and Finau's in that bottom group. I think there's ways to make money on Tony Finau this week, maybe matchups as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I know you highlighted Finau a couple weeks ago at Phoenix too.
Didn't go well that time. Hopefully,
that was the one time. So hopefully this time you're back on it. I like it. Him and Homer are the only two guys outside of plus 5,000 that show up with any positive course history notable here. So that's something of note to keep in mind. Yeah, like I said, I didn't have a super strong long shot. Akshay would be as far as down the board as I would go, and thinking about one and done as well here. Any final thoughts you have for our folks on the Genesis?
I typically give a conviction pick at this point. I got to think about it a little bit more. It's Tuesday morning. I got to think about it. This is a tough cap for this tournament. I need to decide whether I'm going top of the board or middle of the board here. I will reply in the comments just like I did a couple of weeks ago with Chris Goddard up, and that went well. So come back to the video on Wednesday or early in the morning on Thursday. I will have in the comments who my conviction pick is, but it will be one of my top 3. I can promise you that. It will be one of Rory, Hideki, or Matthew Fitzpatrick. But I'll put my full betting card and my conviction pick in the comments before this tournament tees off. So stay tuned for that. Again, if you found any of the information in this video useful, do us a small favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments who you are betting on this week. If you want to tail any of our bets, please go support one of our newest show sponsors over at Novig. You can use the promo code POOL and get $25 in bonus credits after you play $25. So go check that out. Again, promo code POOL is how to unlock that bonus. I think last week we put it down in the description. I'm sure they'll do it again this week, so keep an eye out for that. And best of luck, everybody. For Jason, I'm Steven. Best of luck with all of your Genesis Invitational picks at Tigers Tournament.